Hello. So Dante Unbound dropped on the 27th of March, as we all know, and we've seen some of the new stuff. Dante seems pretty strong, but we also got a few new augments. One of them for Chroma is Guardian Armor, which is extremely strong. So the way it works is 50% of the damage dealt to your allies will get redirected to you within affinity range, but also enemies killed inside of the range will now give back health. So instead of the way I was managing to use Chroma was literally face tank a ton of damage and then Vazarin out and then like teleport through because Vazarin's really good on healing. I'm still probably going to use it on him just because of the grouping ability and everything of that sort. But this makes Vex Armor extremely useful. And it doesn't have the downside of having to recast a lot. Obviously, in lower tier missions where there aren't plentiful enemies, the duration refresh won't proc as often, but in Steel Path, I mean, your average KPM should be decently high enough to keep this running. Unfortunately, though, the duration does not increase with duration. That makes sense. The kill duration, so you get a second per kill, does not increase. It is maxed at 1 second. However, he's still extremely good. Vex Armor's got to be one of the most consistent additive damage sources. I know Eclipse just got reworked, in which I will be talking about that in a different video. But he's still extremely strong, and since you can basically face tank a lot of damage, combining with some other factors, you're pretty much set now. This makes him less cost deficient, where you had to spam it like all the time. Obviously, as I've stated, you have to do it in lower level missions. I was getting around this with Combat Discipline, because Combat Discipline, if you kill an enemy, you take health damage, and that would count towards Fury. I was also running Catalyzing Shields to shield gate more efficiently, so that I could like respond to stuff, because I use Vazarin. Elemental Ward still needs some help. I think overall his kit is just a little too clunky, not including the fact that this is probably the most niche ability in the game regarding A4. Other than like Cataclysm and stuff like that. Chrome is still really good though. There's tons of things you can do. Anything that dumps range basically runs fine on him. Unfortunately, we can't stack Vex Armor and Eclipse as they are basically the same ability, just one's additive, one's multiplicative. But as for right now, I haven't fully tested out some of the new stuff you can do with Guardian Armor, but honestly, it's probably not going to change my builds a lot. I run all 3 Umbro mods. I run Equilibrium because it's pretty good. Guardian Armor, Narrow-Minded, Flow, and Blind Rage. Brief Respite can be changed. I was using this earlier, but you can do like Growing Power now, because that'll push us over 300%, which is pretty good. And especially with Molt Augmented and Arcane Energize, he has like gigantic energy cap. So others, like, I pretty much run this build unanimously through everything, I'll be honest. Gloom's pretty good because it doesn't spread out past him, so if anybody comes in melee range or you're pushing somebody in melee, they won't be able to respond or move. Plus, if I'm correct, Cold has a really weird interaction with it where the damage redirection will give you HP back, but this was also really good because when you run Combat Discipline, you basically kill an enemy and the next one you hit will fully restore your HP just because of 13% lifesteal is a lot, especially if you're shield gating or anything like that. Pillage is also really good because Pillage's range is not based off of range, it's based off of duration, kind of like Molecular Prime, which makes it a very good subsume over his 4. His 4 is his most changeable ability because it is also kind of the weakest one he has. His 1 is still useful because it lets you cycle the elements, although they should change this to be a little more efficient. It's unfortunate that if you remove this you completely lose the ability, but also Elemental Ward just kind of needs a buff in general, so we'll have to see if they come back to it or take a look at it. I know Elemental Ward Electricity is really good on Hildren, but I think it got nerfed at some point, so the efficiency of that has dropped significantly. Also, he's a weapons platform, so throw in energized munitions with some good duration, because that's pretty much what you build around. Strength doesn't change this. However, the Kuvizar being able to hold 20 shots with a really strong ability just kind of cleans house, honestly. Let's load this up here. They'll shoot me a little bit. My Hound will disarm them, because of course he will. And then, yeah, Chroma's pretty good. It's just unfortunate that his kit is a little bit clunky. But Guardian Armor definitely will fix that, and it'll also make it easier to justify bringing him along. I mean, he takes 50% of, or it like redirects. I don't know if it's damage redirection, kind of like Merlina or Shadows, but that's still really good. You take 50% of the damage your allies deal, but you or your squad getting kills will not only increase the duration, but also heal you, making him a very, very viable tank. Kind of like Inaros, who just got his buff, Nidus, and all of that. So he's pretty good. He takes a lot of weapons and can make them really good. Glaive is also another one. He absolutely shreds with this. So obviously Glaive is extremely good regardless of what you're doing, but with a damage multiplication, he's super good. So I think Chroma is really good, and Guardian Armor is super cool because it's a straight upgrade. Honestly, it's a little irritating that it's not base kit, at least the duration increase, but I feel like if both the absorption and health were base kit, it would be absolutely busted. Chroma's kind of fallen into a pit because everybody's like, well, Vex Armor's bad, Vex Armor's bad. It's not bad. It is kind of iffy in late game content, but hopefully Guardian Armor fixes this, makes it a little more polished for him, and makes it able to do a lot more in regards to keeping himself sufficient and also rotating in and out of his different abilities, especially with Elemental Ward. Toxin is really good because of the reload chance, and Cold is obviously amazing because this is a lot of armor, and Vex Armor and Cold Elemental Ward give him more. So basically, unless something deals a ton of damage, you can face tank it. This is just a general broad stroke overview of him, just saying that, hey, the new augment is fantastic. He's definitely worth a check. He's not as good as some other weapon platform frames. Mirage comes to mind, especially now that they've changed her to fix her, which everybody told me I was wrong about, but whatever. But this is still a very good additive damage and armor increase, which makes him super sufficient, and you can basically face tank a lot of damage. Especially if you're running Vazarin, because Vazarin allows you to status cleanse on, like, Void Jump, I don't know, Sling. It's Void Sling now. Through you, plus it gives you a free CC ability, so you don't have to subsume one onto it, and that also, teleporting through it, gives health. So he's pretty good. Obviously, a lot of it boils down to what weapon you're using, but he makes use of every weapon pretty well. During some of my longer runs, I stress tested him with a 60 round defense arbitration, and I gotta say, he's just absolutely nuts. This is a lot of damage for an additive damage source. But some of this is obviously my Hound, like status affecting, but a lot of this is a lot of additive damage, a lot of tankiness, and just being able to get into a fight pretty reliably. So yeah, use Chroma. Chroma's awesome. Also, they changed the Incarnon icon a little bit, so that's cool.